After a very strong start into Season 2 last week, can the next chapter in the Mandalorian story keep the pace? Hi there, it's Micha. Let's have a look and find out together. Having just watched episode 10, The Passenger, I would like to share my thoughts with you. Like last time, I will again utilize callouts from my friend Neal, who is a Star Wars superfan, who notices much more hidden details than I ever could. Neal also provides the music for our videos. Thanks for that as well. Stay tuned till the end of this video to hear this week's question and find out the solution to last week's quiz. Well, let's jump back in. The new episode starts exactly where the previous one ended, with Mando and the child on a sand speeder leaving the scene of their fight with a crate dragon, heading back to Mos Eisley. On their way they are attacked by a bunch of thieves that destroy their speeder in the process. One of them appears to be a Java without a hood that wears a metal construct covering their face, so you can't see their bright shining eyes. Or it is just another short creature that also sounds very Java-like. Anyway, the creature takes hold of Baby Yoda, but Mando can trade his jetpack for the child. And in a funny little sequence, Din then remotely starts the jetpack to take the thief up into the air, just to then drop him back to the ground. Without it. Something that earns him a slightly bewildered look from his protege, meaning, was that really necessary? Which Mando shrugs away with a laugh. After a long march on foot, the Mandalorian meets up with Pelimoto, who is in the company of an ant-like creature that provides a new lead to a possible Mandalorian settling. The catch? They have to take a passenger along for the ride. An anthropomorphic frog lady. Yes, that is currently her official designation, as no name is given and Mando doesn't understand her language. Who needs to meet her husband on the planet in question. Her luggage? A glass cylinder full of her eggs. Her last batch ever that must be inseminated by her husband ASAP. Or her lineage will come to an end. The second catch? The eggs would be destroyed if the ship goes to hyperspeed. So they need to take the slow and dangerous scenic route, where they likely run into pirates, scavengers or worse. Worse, in this case at least, comes in form of a new Republican patrol. As Din's ship, the Razor Crest, doesn't automatically submit an identification signal, the guards won't leave so easily. And a question about him and his ship being somehow involved in a recent attack on a prison transport ship forces our hero to make a run for it. In the process, the ship crash lands in an icy region of a nearby planet. While Mando plans to take a nap for the night, repairing the ship the next morning, Frog Lady uses the translation unit of the broken droid Q90 that still lies around on board to communicate with Din Djarin, as her ex might not survive the cold temperature, reminding him that he gave his word to help her. While he, begrudgingly, starts to repair the ship right away, Frog Lady vanishes in a cave where she finds a hot spring, perfect to keep the eggs warm. Done with the bare minimum of repairs, the Mandalorian follows her footsteps into the cave. While Mando helps her packing up, Baby Yoda stumbles across a field of eggs that looks suspiciously similar to the eggs that house the facehuggers in the Alien franchise, including the way they open up. Inside the egg, the child finds a small creature that he immediately consumes, like baby stew. But the same moment, all eggs around him starts to hatch with six-legged spider beasts, joined by their older iterations in all sizes, including a giant one. Mando, Baby Yoda and the Frog Lady barely manage to escape the cavern, but the creatures follow them onto the ship, forcing them to retreat into the cockpit. Just before the giant spider monster is about to crash the cockpit, the Republican patrol starts to shoot at the creepy crawlers. A surprised Mando asks if they are now under arrest, but the guards tell him that though he is officially wanted for breaking out a prisoner, he also captured 3 wanted criminals on the prison transporter. And security footage showed his willingness to die to protect the guard on board of the ship. Therefore, they let him go, as the situation seems to be more complicated than it may appear on the warrant. The episode ends with a heavily demolished ship starting its way to the common destination. What can I say? This is another great episode, continuing the theme from the last chapter, that things are often happening in a grey area, shown here by the guards trusting their instinct and letting Mando continue on his mission, not turning him in as they could have. It also was just his luck to run into a patrol of which one of the 2 pilots was present in the aftermath of the attack on the prison transporter, garnering the off-the-book knowledge about the Mandalorian's action on board of the ship. That for this decision likely tipped the balance in his favor. It was also nice to see that the ex-rebels wouldn't go for a bribe, but instead letting him off with the heads up to fix this issue with the signal beacon, so that there are no problems with future patrol encounters. And after the last episode exonerated the Javas, showing them in a more positive light, this week's show even built on that, assuming the one thief at the start was a Java, by showing us that creatures of a species can stand for something as a group, but that individuals, especially castaways, don't represent the same values. Something that is true in each society. One thing I would like to highlight is the whole storyline around the callbacks to Chapter 6, The Prisoner, including the usage of the remains of droid Q90 as a translation device, which was a nice sentiment, because that chapter was one of the 2 episodes from Season 1 that felt like filler episodes. And by filler, I mean they didn't have any impact on the overarching story. It was still a great episode, it just felt like a late addition to ramp up the episode count. So now, retroactively, they make the episode more relevant by reaping the rewards of the aftermath. And while I think about it, they did the same for episode 5, The Gunslinger, the other filler episode, which introduces Pelimoto to us, who became very important in last week's episode, as well as in this one. That's what I call great creative storytelling. By the way, like last episode, this again feels like an episode that was conceived as a chapter in a series. It is a standalone story which can be enjoyed on its own, but is bookended by clear connection points to the previous and next episode, building a continuous story that has not let us down yet. So, no complaints here. I always think it's a pity though if an episode is quite short, but chapters in a real book also don't sport the same number of pages per chapter. So why should TV show episodes have the same length? That is the plus regarding shows on streaming platforms. The episode length is based on the story's needs, if the writer and director do a good job, and not dictated by the network's time slot and sold commercial time. Speaking of writers, they also seem to have their fun this week, with the naming and appearance of non-human creatures, which borders on lazy if you think about it. The anthropomorphic frog is not giving a name, so the credits list her as Frog Lady. Another creature is an anthropomorphic ant, that we only know by the sarcastic nickname they are given by Pelimoto, which is Dr. Mandible. And the spider creatures have 6 instead of 8 legs and a different body type, but the leg movement is 100% arachnid. As a joke for one episode, we can let that slide and even join in the laugh, but please don't make this the new normal. I also like the allusion to aliens, and for a moment there, I really was asking myself if this will be a Star Wars Alien crossover, now that the Alien franchise, via Fox, is also owned by Disney. Not sure which path would have been better, but at least it made for a great in-joke. My favorite moments this week were around Baby Yoda, who was very prominently featured this week. And, quick side note, I love that he is mostly shown via practical effects, even though you sometimes clearly see the puppetry. It has much more charm though than have him be 100% CGI, so thanks for going down the classic Yoda route. But coming back to my favorite moments, Baby Yoda, like his official name, the child, suggests, is an infant and this is so beautifully showcased this week, as though he is very aware of his surroundings and even seems to know exactly when to use the Force. He just keeps eating Frog Lady's eggs. This is a running gag throughout the episode, showing that he just can't stop himself like little children seldomly can. This doesn't make him more or less cute, it just shows he is not made of pure wisdom as the grown-up version of Yoda was presented. Like all kids, he can be a bit of an asshole, and that is good to see, and absolutely fine.
Spit that out.
On my end, this episode gets 8 out of 10 points, as most things are done very well, and I especially liked the humor in this one. Now let's look what Neal thought of it. On the downside, the episode again felt too much like a side adventure to him. Okay. On the upside, like last time, Neal liked the length, with 40 minutes still longer than most of last season's episodes, and the movie-like quality of the effects. He especially enjoyed the action sequence at the beginning of the episode, where some bounty hunters attempt to take Baby Yoda, which was awesome. In particular, the part where the pirate Java takes Mando's jetpack. Funny without being corny. Interesting, so Neal thinks the group were bounty hunters, while I just saw common thieves. Guess he might be right. He also referred to one of them as Pirate Java, so I guess I was on the right track. He also liked that Baby Yoda is more front and center in this episode, the nod to the Alien movies, and having X-Wing action. Neal rated this episode with 7 out of 10 points, saying he only did so because he is a fan. Otherwise, it would have been 6 out of 10. Wow. Good then that he is a fan, right? So between the two of us, Chapter 10 receives a score of 7.5 out of 10. This episode is literally stuffed with eggs of every kind, and Neal enjoyed the smorgasbord of Easter eggs for Star Wars geeks. That was subtle enough to not alienate more casual fans. Which brings us to Dr. Mandible. The ant-like creature who is playing the card game Sebek with Pelimoto might possibly be a Killik. The species were first mentioned in the 1995 book The Illustrated Star Wars Universe and made their first proper appearance in The Joiner King, the first book of the Star Wars The Dark Nest trilogy. Dr. Mandible was previously shown in the Cantina in Season 1. Sebek. Sebek, as just mentioned, is a card game referenced in The Empire Strikes Back and then seen in the Rebels animated series, in The Force Awakens, and the standalone Solo movie. It was most heavily featured in Solo and is the game in which Han wins the Millennium Falcon from Lando. Dave Filoni. Dave is the executive producer of Rebels and Clone Wars, but also directed some episodes of The Mandalorian. He makes his second cameo in the series as Trapper Wolf, one of the X-Wing pilots. He first appeared in Season 1, Chapter 6, The Prisoner. The Krigna. The Krigna, who are also referred to as Crawlers, previously appeared in the Star Wars Rebels animated series. They are predatory spider-like creatures that are native to Atollon. Fully grown Krigna are resistant to blaster bolts and highly sensitive to negative emotions, making them extremely difficult to tame with the Force. They can be repelled by the signal emitted by sensor beacons. I guess Mando didn't know this. The Frog Lady. The Frog Lady is voiced by D. Bradley Baker, who voiced Rex and the clones in the Clone Wars animated series. Like Dr. Mandible, the Frog Lady was also previously featured in the Canteen in Season 1. So much for this week's Easter eggs. Did you like this episode? Are you fine with the current chapter structure? Or does it also feel to you like side adventures? Let us know in the comments. And here the answer to the quiz question from last episode. In which scene in A New Hope did we see a Krayt Dragon for the first time, in any form? In the scene at the beginning of A New Hope, in which 3PO is walking through the Tatooine desert alone, he walks by a giant skeleton. The skeleton of a Krayt Dragon. I know, but I said in any form, didn't I? Here's this week's question. In this episode, one of the 3 X-Wing pilots from episode 6 returns. What was the similarity between the 3 actors portraying the pilots? Let us know in the comments as well. That's it. As always, if you enjoyed this video, like it and feel free to share it with your friends. And why not subscribe to my channel so you won't miss any future video. So much for now, see you next time and thanks for watching!